After what was the craziest month of my life, of going through traumatic miscarriage, having emergency surgery, and then just 2 days later flying across the world to host a 100-mile run to complete the Tour de Mont Blanc, I'd say we're in the perfect position for a comeback. A true comeback makes the crowd gasp before it makes them cheer. Let's think back to some iconic comebacks. Of course, we can think of Michael Jordan, who retired from basketball in 1993, tried baseball, and then returned to basketball in 1995, and then led the Bulls to 3 more championships. Serena Williams came back to tennis after pregnancy complications and almost dying, and then reached multiple Grand Slam finals. And for my ultra runners, the comeback is well documented. But the one that comes to mind is Mike McKnight in 2019 at the Moab 240. He was 15 miles behind the leader at mile 200, and instead of dropping, he dropped the hammer and came back to win the Moab 240. Absolutely insane. A comeback when everyone counts you out is just that much sweeter. So, how does this all relate to me? If we haven't met yet, hi, my name is Amanda. I'm a 2-time cancer survivor, an Army veteran, and now I'm an ultra runner. And I've kind of always been a comeback kid. You may not know this, but I actually grew up playing boys baseball. I wasn't a runner. In fact, I hated it, and we'll come back to that. But from 3 to 18, I was the small Asian girl in a field of bigger and stronger dudes. A true underdog, but I kind of thrived in that. This would continue through my 7 years of serving active duty Army, through my cancer journey, and now into this crazy world of running. Just a life with so many victories and even more setbacks. But the thing I love about ultras is that they're long enough for your race to end and start back all over again. So never drop. Your comeback is waiting for you around the next corner. And this is that journey.
How far can you go on that thing, Brennik?
I don't know, we'll see.
We've got our mid-run refuel.
Oh, definitely these.
Nerd cluster. That is all the rage.
I'll eat that whole bag.
Will you eat that? I'll get it for you.
I dare you to get Takis.
Oh, do they only have?
It looks like tap, no?
It's not on. No. Who carries $1 bills? Boo. Well, now we know. $2.50? Oh wait, credit. What should we get?
Try it.
What do you
There's
want?
no prices on anything.
Should we shotgun a monster? E5. No way. That literally had credit.
Yeah!
That's crazy.
Lucky day.
Okay.
That's it.
Well, I can't chug it with an air. What the heck? You can chug it while air thing? What in the world? This is a skill I do not have.
Now it's gonna be even funnier trying to laugh.
Try it.
I literally can't chug. Brennik knows. I was like, one of these mornings I was filming and I was like, I'm gonna chug my G1M, and I start chugging it. It takes me like 8 seconds to chug my glass.
We need to do one of those. If it's not carbonated and I'm not like waterfalling it, I can get it done quick.
So we just hit our turnaround point. We're gonna go back and finish up our 10 mile. Alright, we just closed out our run today. We finished today with 10.10 miles, around 1:30, so an hour and 30. So average pace comes out to 8:56. So nice zone 1, zone 2, obviously conversational the whole time. This is what we're doing, I would say like probably around 3 to 4 times a week. And then in addition to this, we're doing speed. But right now I'm trying to get 10 miles every single day at the very least. So this is what my like easy recovery days are like. So on the Whoop, actually, it actually breaks down my like heart rate data. And today we spent around 60% in zone 2 and then around 35% in zone 1. So that's how we're finishing today's run. So thanks for coming along. So this series is going to document the comeback. So we're going to be capturing the training, the races, the pacing assignments, and the adventures in this season. Do I have my eyes set on my next 100 miler? Yes, but this series is going to be a little bit different. I really want to focus on the journey instead of the finish line. Over the past few years, you guys have seen me set goal after goal with upwards of 9 months of training to a single event. And this series is going to be a little bit different. I'm excited to take you guys along. So next we are actually going to go to physical therapy. So if you guys didn't know, I severely sprained my ankle 2 weeks before Tour de Mont Blanc. So I am in like a pretty like intense rehab for my ankle. So it still has a little bit of pain, but let's go see my PT. All right, we are just showing up to PT. I'm really excited today because we are gonna work on my ankle, which has been injured for quite a few weeks now. So we are gonna work with Cade. He's my PT, absolutely incredible PT. He's like literally the person who's made me actually believe in PT. I feel like for years before this, I haven't actually believed that it's like beneficial in any way because I haven't had the right one. So if you're looking for a good PT in the area, his name is Cade. I can put his Instagram down below. But let's do a quick fit check. I feel like I don't ever do these, so I want to get better at them. We have some Nike Metcons on the feet. These Roughly socks are Saturday Strides. We have the Buffbunny shorts. These are Legacy shorts, and you can use code Kimiko to save yourself money on all Buffbunny stuff. And then I have this lightweight little Lululemon top. So I am excited to go get this PT done. Let's get it. I do kind of wonder though if like, because I've kind of thought this, because I just have a tendency to sprain my ankle, and this is like, has been an issue with me for a long time, but because I was non-weight bearing for like almost a year on my cancer foot, like it was like 9.5 months, that I have learned such bad habits and like overcompensation that now it's almost like normal for my muscles to be overcompensating or like imbalanced. Yeah. Because it was unbalanced for so long, and I didn't do PT because I didn't believe in it back then.
We probably like functionally imbalanced, right? There's like,
yeah.
It's like it's working.
It works. Yeah, I can do this.
But yeah, there's some things we can tune up for sure. So.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Right. That would be the direction you typically sprain.
Yes.
We're gonna build some stability. We're gonna do kettlebell marches.
Okay.
I'm looking for your sets like RPE. Is that the term you know?
Yep.
Like 7.
Okay.
I feel like you have maybe 3 more good ones in the tank.
Okay, that's me. awesome PT Cade over here. That's perfect. We sprained our ankle probably like 6-ish weeks ago now, maybe a little less, five weeks ago, less than 2 weeks before TMB. So we tried to do as much as we could before we left for TMB, and then obviously got through all of TMB, and then now are still in recovery, because obviously doing TMB was probably not like the 100% best thing for it at the time. So we're still dealing with some inflammation, instability, etc. So I am coming to Cade at least once a week to work on that, to make sure that we're coming back stronger and not like getting used to overcompensating and or just like learning bad habits. So that's why we're coming here, because we want to be stronger and come back significantly better. Okay, we are back from PT. I showered because I desperately needed it. But I wanted to talk a little bit about kind of what this series is going to entail and dive a little bit deeper into like why the concept of the comeback is so powerful to me specifically. I personally think that comebacks hit us harder because it's not just about winning, it's also about losing first. And I think that's such a huge topic for me right now, just obviously coming off of a traumatic miscarriage. And I'm just gonna be super honest about this and raw about this, because when I asked for questions on my IG, like the number one asked question was like, how are you really? Like, how are you actually? And I just feel like I owe you guys that. I think that's really important to talk about. And I feel like I talk about it a lot more here on YouTube than I do on like IG, because it's just a little bit easier. And I feel like you guys like know me. But I genuinely do feel like significantly better now this week. Last week, which was right around like that 1 month post miscarriage, I feel like all of that grief like hit me all at once, almost like the grief had been delayed, and it was like, instead of like delayed onset muscle soreness, it was like delayed onset grief. And I think this is super normal to just kind of like go through huge waves of things. But when we're thinking about comebacks, we also think about losses, and I feel like that has been a huge loss for me. Obviously, emotionally, like a huge loss, but I think also the side of it that I think is important to talk about here is also the physical side of it, because this is something that I feel like just doesn't really get talked about. But I think one of the coolest things that this experience has taught me is just how incredible, specifically like in my field, in the ultra running field, how incredible it is that women like are able to go through all this and then come back and win incredible races. Like I think that has been one of the biggest teaching lessons and like the most eye-opening experiences for me, has been like being in these shoes and recognizing that my body was literally sacrificed for 3 months to literally grow life. I sacrificed my Leadville spot. I sacrificed training in many ways in the intensity that I'm used to. And then obviously had a huge loss after that. But it kind of gave me perspective of like, there's several women who have children, so who've gone through 9 months of sacrificing their body to be able to grow a human. And then after that, sacrificing for breastfeeding, and just kind of has given me a whole different perspective on females in sport, specifically in something that requires like 6 to 9 months to upwards of multiple years to train for a single event. So I think that's what makes ultra so interesting, is that it does require a lot of time and investment and sacrifice. So just seeing like women who are doing incredible things in this sport and having multiple kids or multiple losses and or have experienced what I've gone through plus having kids, it's just like completely given me a new perspective. So that's kind of what I'm thinking of, like when I think of like a comeback is about winning, it's about success, it's about finding success after a loss, and that just like hits me in a totally different way, having experienced the loss that I've currently experienced. In addition to the loss, a comeback is also about a setback. So the setback for me has been like a physical setback. Obviously, I've been able to kind of come back to things relatively quickly in comparison to someone who, you know, had to have a C-section or had a full 9 months of pregnancy, but I have experienced it and it has felt really heavy, especially not having like the celebration of having a kid on the other side, but having, you know, sacrificed 3 months of my body, so 13 weeks of my body to be able to grow a baby. I did gain weight. I did lose fitness. I tried to refocus a lot more on strength and built a lot of strength in the gym, which I'm really proud of. But as far as like endurance, I definitely lost some of that. And that's as to be expected because your body's going through so many changes within that first trimester. It's actually one of the craziest things that I feel like I just didn't know until I was pregnant. but how many things are actually changing within that first trimester is actually more than in the second and the third physiologically. So you're literally growing limbs, you're literally growing a brain. The baby is literally surviving off of the food that you are eating the first trimester because there's no placenta. So all that food that you're intaking is going directly to feed the baby. And it comes with the nausea, the like vomiting, the lightheadedness, the fatigue, like the craziest fatigue I've ever experienced in my entire life. And I just feel like that setback of, you know, being pregnant and then having to recover from the miscarriage is something that I feel like has made this idea of this comeback so much stronger for me, of like, you know, I did have to tackle this crazy thing, both pregnancy and loss and surgery after all this, and it has kind of reignited this fire in me. And that's why I feel like this series is just going to mean so much to me. And this is why I feel like it's so important for me right now to focus on the comeback, like the journey of the comeback itself, versus focusing like solely on the finish line like I have in the past. And I think I was just in a different like phase of my life when that was my main focus. But now I'm kind of stepping into this new season where I really, really want to celebrate the journey. In this comeback, something that I'm also keeping in mind and really focusing on is nutrition. If you've been around the channel for a while, you guys know how important I think fueling is for performance, and science would definitely back me up in that boat. I think for performance, the number one thing that I see specifically in ultramarathons is under fueling. Maybe not the number one thing, but it's very, very, very common. I think under training can also be a factor. I think also going out too hot, too fast. There's so many factors that I think of, but under fueling is incredibly common in ultramarathons. And when you look at the top athletes, you see that their carbohydrate intake for a race, even for small females, is upwards of 120 grams of carbs per hour. And if you're just starting out, and maybe you were like me when I first began, you're going out on these runs, you're doing them fast, you're not fueling in your workouts, you're not even fueling before your workouts, and then you're wondering why mile 7, you're like hitting a wall and you're like, I can't continue to go on. It's because of your fueling. We have recently seen a lot of pro athletes be incredibly transparent about their fueling strategies, and you would be absolutely shocked at how much these athletes are eating. So for me, in this transition, in this comeback, I'm really focusing on a few different things. As someone who absolutely obsesses over the nutritional needs for athletes and for performance, it's honestly no surprise that I would be as interested in nutritional needs for pregnancy and for fertility. In this like absolute obsession and interest, I have found Lily Nichols. She's an expert on nutritional needs for pregnant women, for fertility, and for gestational diabetes. She's written 3 different books that I know of: Real Food for Fertility, Real Food for Pregnancy, and Real Food for Gestational Diabetes. Real Food for Pregnancy is actually the first one that I picked up. She goes incredibly in depth on the things that women are lacking in their diets and just in general in the United States and across the Western world, and how important it is to be fulfilling these nutritional needs to have a healthy pregnancy and to have a healthy baby. I feel like there's such a disconnect between Western medicine and nutrition in general, and I learned so much about the disconnect specifically in pregnancy going to see my midwife, OBs, and have them suggest absolutely nothing when it came to my diet and having a healthy pregnancy and having a healthy baby. So not even an omega-3 or a prenatal. So I definitely think it's up to us to put our health and our baby's health into our own hands and be empowered by the information that is out there that we kind of have to dig for. So if you've been looking for like something to fulfill that disconnect, I actually really do highly suggest both of these books. So Real Food for Fertility is something that discusses like before you're even pregnant, how important it is for you to fulfill nutritional needs and to be aware of the things that can impact your fertility when it comes to the things you eat, the things you put on your skin, and how everyday life can impact your ability to get pregnant. And then Real Food for Pregnancy obviously deals with you actually growing a baby and how these important nutrients that are lacking in many Americans and many people across the world can actually impact the health of your baby. So I've just absolutely been geeking out over here, and I think one day I hopefully would like to be able to gather all this information on the pregnancy and fertility side, and then also include the athlete side, because I think this is all great, but also my nutritional needs as an athlete are also different than your everyday pregnant woman. So I would love to be able to like bridge the gap somehow. And I have a few brainstormed ideas of potential things that I want to like bring to market that might involve something like that. So it's something I've been really passionate about, and this whole journey obviously has spurred this passion in me, but I don't think that I can unlearn the things that I have learned. So I'm really excited about it. Once again, these are the books written by Lily Nichols, and I'm not sponsored or anything. She's not paying me. She doesn't even know I exist to talk about this, but I do think her books are incredible. So all that being said, a few things that I have been focusing on. Number 1 is high quality protein and not being afraid of having my red meat. So specifically for me, you guys know, if you've been here for a while, I'm obsessed with elk. This is my 100% preferred protein. If I can get it from someone who's recently hunted, that's even better. But I do buy my ground elk from Force of Nature. Elk is just specifically more nutrient dense than just your regular like ground beef. And this is also pasture raised. And I know Force of Nature's standards are incredibly high, so I prefer to eat this over just regular ground beef. I want to pull some info directly from fertility enhancing foods and nutrients in Real Food for Fertility and the importance of meat. So this kind of like completely opened my eyes. I've shifted to eating a lot more meat over the past few years. I previously was vegetarian for 15 years, vegan for 4 years, and have completely kind of gone the other way because of some health things that I experienced. And I've talked about that in the past. But I've never really viewed meat as being something that would be fertility enhancing. She says, whether you're talking beef, pork, poultry, or wild game, meat provides a source of complete protein, minerals, B vitamins, fat-soluble vitamins, and other several nutrients that can be difficult to match in other foods. As you learn in chapter 2, protein requirements for optimal fertility are much higher than the current recommendations, and animal foods are the most concentrated source of high quality protein. In addition, the specific amino acids in animal proteins have some benefits for fertility. She specifically brings up glycine and says, interestingly, glycine becomes conditionally essential during pregnancy, meaning your body cannot keep up with the demands unless it is a regular part of your diet. She then says the level of L-carnitine in follicular fluid specifically contributes to the quality and developmental competence of the oocyte, meaning its ability to become fertilized, develop into a viable embryo, and implant in the uterus. So that's crazy. Like, your ability to actually intake L-carnitine has a direct impact on your ability to get pregnant. Absolutely insane. She goes on in this chapter about so many different nutrients, but I found that one to be really fascinating because as someone who went through chemo and cancer, I was told that I would never be able to get pregnant naturally. So we didn't even know that this would happen. But in addition to being told that, I also was not eating meat. I was vegan at the time. And I actually went vegan specifically because I thought it would be the best thing for my body while I was going through my chemo. So now being in this phase, I'm like, what really is the truth? And I really do trust Lily's insight. She's backed incredibly heavily by science, and that's kind of where I am drawing these conclusions from now. So I am incorporating a lot of meat. If that upsets you, I'm really sorry, but specifically my elk, which is really, really high in creatine and amino acids, it's actually more nutritionally dense than other meats, is why I kind of go towards that. So much rambling. I'm such a nerd when it comes to this stuff, but let's go ahead and make breakfast. This might be a little bit controversial, but it's something that I have talked about on the channel before. And full transparency, I don't use any seed oils and I don't purchase anything that has seed oils in it. For me, just personally, it has impacted my digestion immensely. I used to be semi-allergic to things like apples, bananas, pit fruits, etc. And I thought that it was just an allergy to those foods. But when I cut out seed oils, I actually found that my ability to digest other things like immensely improved. So now I eat pit fruits on the daily. I literally am obsessed with peaches, plums, apricots, all the things. And I definitely attribute it to huge shifts in my diet, and that being a huge one. And I actually just found this in the book. I didn't even know this is in here, but she talks about seed oils actually in the chapter called Foods That Don't Enhance Fertility. She says, as mentioned in chapter 2, vitamin E is also crucial to maintain sufficient levels of omega-3 fats in the body, including DHA and EPA. These delicate omega-3 fats are necessary to support oocyte and sperm quality, embryogenesis, and fetal brain development. If you regularly consume vegetable oils, your body may be unable to maintain sufficient levels of omega-3, since omega-6 fats are known to compete for the same receptor sites. So that's kind of crazy. I get asked all the time how I cook my elk, so I just put it in the pan. I like dice it up a little bit so it's almost like bigger chunks of ground meat, and then I'll sprinkle some salt. So this is specifically seasoning salt from, I think it's called AM. I don't know what the actual brand name is, but I just got this from my local grocer. The ingredients on this are flake salt, paprika, onion, garlic, red pepper, and herbs. So did I say herbs? I meant herbs. So you just sprinkle this on top. I just make sure that every little piece has a little bit of this salt on there. And salt is essential for athletes, as you guys know, but also super essential. She actually talks about it in the book for fertility and overall health in general. I think sometimes salt gets a bad rap, but I think when we think about salt, we think of like highly processed packaged chips or foods like that. And that is definitely a type of salt, or I guess more so of the actual vessel of what the salt is in, that is the unhealthy part. It's not salt in general. Salt is super essential. If you guys have been watching my channel for any amount of time, you guys know how important electrolytes are. So your electrolytes meaning potassium, magnesium, and sodium. So if you like lick your skin after you've been sweating, or if sweat drops into your mouth, you taste that salt. That means that when you're actively sweating, you're losing that salt. So in order to rehydrate yourself, you need to make sure that you're intaking sodium as well. In addition to my elk, I'm gonna have what I generally have post-run. I've already had this today, but I'm gonna have it again because I wanna show you guys how I actually make this. And this is honestly what I eat like post-run first breakfast every single day. So I use vegan protein after we just talked about how important animal protein is. I use vegan protein because I'm actually allergic to milk. So I wish I could have whey. A high quality whey is gonna be a more complete protein than any sort of vegan protein that you have, but I don't mind utilizing this. It's still very clean. And just in general, I feel like this sits in my stomach way better than any other plant protein that I've had, and I like the taste of it in my oats. So let's make our little protes. So I will heat up my water in this little kettle thing, and I have 1 to 2 packets, depending on if it's post-run, what I'm gonna have for lunch, etc., of Better Oats apple cinnamon flavor in here. I just take that boiling water and I pour it over the oats, and just a little bit more water than you would actually use if you were just having the oats, and then I let this sit. And then 1 to 2 minutes later, there should be a little bit less like excess water in here. And then I will throw 1 scoop of BPN vegan protein powder in vanilla. You guys can use code Amanda at checkout as always. And look at that, that's 1 scoop, 1 heaping scoop. And I plop that in there and then I just mix it up. One positive thing about using vegan protein in this recipe as well is that it doesn't curdle with the hot water. So I do appreciate that. But then I just give it a big old stir. So this with 2 eggs is what I have post-run, and that's been my like post-run breakfast every single day for multiple months at a time. Today I just feel like having this again for lunch. Oftentimes I'll have rice with my elk, rice and a vegetable, or I'll have potatoes and a vegetable, etc. But I just like to keep it super, super simple. This is just what I was craving today, so this is what I'm allowing myself to have again for a second time for lunch. But there you go, that's protein. This is literally, I think it ends up being 25 grams of protein. And then what I'm having from the elk is going to be about half a pound of elk, which is right around 40 grams of protein. So it'll be right around 65 grams of protein for today's second breakfast or lunch. So I am most definitely not perfect when it comes to nutrition, but I do try to do the best that I can. And obviously, as I learn new things about nutrition specifically for performance or just overall female health, I do like to make adjustments based on that new information. So that is something that I am very open about and will kind of always be open about if new information hits my ears. Like, I'm not afraid to change the way that I'm eating in order to make sure that I'm optimizing as best as I can. If you're new to your health journey or just want like really basic information on how to eat in order to be healthier, I would just say keep it as simple as you possibly can. You don't need to track macros, you don't need to track calories, like you don't have to be super nitty-gritty about things, but if overall you're just choosing to eat more whole foods, that means single ingredient things like fruit, vegetables, meat, etc. Or if you can read the label and like your grandma would be able to know exactly what the things in the label say or mean and where those things come from, then I would say that's a good choice for you to be making. So for example, like I have those solely like dried pineapple or dried mango, and the only ingredient in that package, yes, it is a package and you buy it in the middle of the grocery store, but the package says the only ingredient is mangoes. So that would be still a whole food choice that you can make. But if you're easily overwhelmed by even like everything that I just talked about when it comes to amino acids, etc., you don't have to like keep in mind any of that information. Just know if you're just starting on your health journey to try and make healthier whole food options available in your home. That way it's easy to make that choice when you're ready to eat, or you're feeling hungry, or you're making a meal for your family. Those are going to be your healthier options. Personally, I've gone through the phase of like choosing like the lowest calorie option or like the really artificial ingredients, but it's lower calorie. For me personally, I think I've just learned over the years that those items are actually not going to be satiating for me or my body, and just don't make my body feel very good. So I would rather have a little bit more calories and have something that has nutrients in it and that is from the earth and is a whole food that is going to be, for me at least, a better option that I'm going to be choosing versus like something that's low calorie and super duper processed. So that is what I would suggest for you, is just to have a few more whole foods. And not everyone's gonna be perfect. I still have snacks and goodies every now and then that are heavily processed, but I would say like 85 to 95% of my diet is gonna be really whole foods and focused on nutrient dense choices. So, cheers. So that is gonna wrap up second breakfast, aka lunch, if you're not someone who eats all day like I do. And that's also gonna wrap up today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed this first episode of The Comeback. If you are not subscribed, please make sure that you do so. It really does help me out and supports the channel. And I just love you guys coming back each week telling me some things that you've incorporated into your life or new things going on in your journey. I also wanna know your comebacks that you're experiencing in your life in the comments below. So make sure that you're subscribed, make sure to like and comment all the things, and until next time, stay unbreakable.